Great. Let's do a quick review of what we did yesterday. All right. So yesterday we looked at building blocks of Qualys, basically the architectural aspects of Qualys, or how Qualys basically performs a vulnerability scan, or before it performs a vulnerability scan, what all components comes into the picture. So it all starts with Qualys web UI, web user interface, which is a SaaS module, which is self-managed and maintained, highly available, fault tolerant, built for disaster recovery, etc. And this module is, or this web UI is available on majority of the browsers, which is Firefox, Chrome, uh, not on Internet Explorer, but on Microsoft Edge. Doesn't support Internet Explorer. When I say doesn't support, it doesn't mean that it will not work on Internet Explorer. However, you may face some navigation challenges on Internet Explorer. So you are either suggested to use Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, or Microsoft Edge. Then you have Qualys sensors, which is the main component of Qualys through which it is able to perform a vulnerability scan. It is able to discover the asset. It is able to discover the inventory of that asset in terms of what all applications are installed on that asset. So we have physical scanner applies, virtual scanner applies, Qualys Cloud Agent, and Qualys Cloud Connector. Those are the four types of sensors are available in Qualys. And then the actual subject, which is your actual application system network that you want to run vulnerability scan against. So those are the building blocks of Qualys. Then we built lab environment yesterday, wherein we built a resource group which was already there. However, you built a virtual network and a couple of virtual machines, Windows client and server OS. And then I requested you to install some applications on those virtual machines so that you can see the capability of Qualys in terms of inventory management, in terms of identifying various applications and softwares which are installed on these assets under asset inventory, as well as identify vulnerabilities against these assets, which includes the operating system as well as applications which are there on these installed on these assets. Then we looked at Qualys Cloud Connector. That's what we started with. So out of four sensors, one of the sensor is Cloud Connector, and we started with Cloud Connector. Since you all have access to Microsoft Azure subscription or Microsoft Azure lab environment, what we did, we basically configured a Qualys Cloud Connector application through which Qualys is able to authenticate and authorize to Microsoft Azure, and it is able to read with the reader role that you have provided, with that role assigned, with that permission assigned, it is able to discover all the resources or all the services that you have provisioned in Microsoft Azure, and there are 80 plus services that it can discover. In our case, we have very limited services deployed. I'm saying we have virtual machines, we have network, so it is able to discover those virtual machines and network, as well as the disk which are there in the virtual machines, as well as network interface card, network security group. That's what it was able to discover. For example, Qualys Cloud Connector, it basically links your cloud provider, which is Azure, AWS, GCP, and Oracle, with Qualys inventory to provide visibility and continuous security across all your cloud environments. The connector offers a lot more than just connecting your account with Qualys, because other than connecting the account, you can also perform scans using a connector. And you can also tag your resources. So remember, we created a tag yesterday while we were configuring the connector so that all the resources that connector is discovering will be tagged. And by looking at a resource, you will know the source of that resource, or where exactly that resource has come from, or what cloud environment, on-premises environment, hybrid environment it belongs to. So connectors, with the help of connectors, I can also launch a scan. That scan is known as cloud perimeter scan. And that scan is only limited to external resources of your cloud environment. So I've specifically mentioned it, which is you can launch a scan on publicly exposed cloud assets, which basically means if you have virtual machines in cloud and if they do not have a public IP, connector would not be able to scan those virtual machines for vulnerabilities. It can only scan publicly exposed cloud assets, which means your web applications or any virtual machine which has a public IP. Now, coincidentally, the virtual machines that we are building in Azure, they have a public IP. So it is able to scan those virtual machines. It will be able to run a perimeter scan. Perimeter scan basically means it will be able to identify all open ports on those virtual machines, the ports on which virtual machines are responding, and some additional information it can provide. And how does it run the scan? So connector doesn't have scan capability. Connector basically uses Qualys external scanners. So Qualys has external scanners which are available in most of the Qualys data centers. So Qualys has multiple data centers in North America, in Europe, and some in Asia Pacific also. The data center that we all are using right now, where our Qualys console is hosted, is in Singapore. So we don't have a Qualys data center in India. The nearest is Singapore. So our application or our console that we are logged in, that we are currently logged in, is basically hosted in Singapore. Now for Alex and for others outside of India, it is probably in the nearest geography, nearest cloud data center in your geography. So for scanning internal now, so as I said, Qualys Cloud Connector basically scans publicly exposed cloud assets. Those assets are your SQL databases, Azure SQL databases. Any Azure PaaS service is publicly exposed. Any Azure SaaS service is publicly exposed. And in terms of IaaS, Azure Virtual Machine is publicly exposed. So it can scan those publicly exposed cloud assets. And it uses cloud Qualys external scanners for running perimeter scan. Now, for scanning internal or private assets, if you want to scan any private virtual machine, any storage service, any database which does not have a public IP, which is not exposed to public internet, for that, use of virtual scanner appliance, use of virtual as well as physical, use of physical or virtual scanner appliance or cloud agent is recommended. Something that we will do today, right? So this is Qualys Cloud Connector. Now, when there are multiple options available, you will need to understand which option is usable and which use case, right? Because these options are not substitute of one another. They complement one another. That's what you need to understand, which basically means Cloud Connector will not do the entire job even though you have your resources hosted in cloud, even though all your assets are hosted in one of the cloud service providers data center, even though Cloud Connector will not serve all the purposes with respect to vulnerability management, because it can only perform a perimeter scan. Now, then we did hands-on lab wherein we provision Cloud Connector. I've added documentation from Qualys. These documentation will basically show you the same steps that you did yesterday. So if I click on the documentation, it says click Azure Connector. There were 6 steps. You remember when we created a cloud connector, we had 6 steps. So all those 6 steps are mentioned here. The reason I'm showing you those steps now, because if I had shown you yesterday, you would not have understood you would not remember it. When you do something on your own, and when you come across issues, when you fix them, you remember it forever. Rather following a documentation and SOP and then completely not using your brain. So this is connector. When we created the connector, we had these 6 steps: a basic authentication, tag and activation, assign tags, and review and confirm. The same information is available here, which is basic authentication, tag and activation, scan settings, assign tags, and confirmation. So in authentication, you see this was the screen wherein you put the information. Similarly, in tag and activation, you basically selected the tags or you created tags. And then scan settings, you basically selected the settings. For example, I selected that how do I want to run the scan? All that information we selected. So this is about creating Azure Connector. It's there in the transcript. You can always follow it. Next is, then there is another document which is again on Microsoft Azure connectors. And over here you have certain links, which so this is what we are going to do today. That will complete our connector part. So the first part is Now that I have a connector, all of you please log into your respective Qualys portal and let me know once that is completed. So now that you see your cloud connector, so I put the connector name as Qualys Azure Connector. My connector is up and running. I can also see when was the last time it basically ran the sync. So you can see it synced today at 1:57 p.m., which is approximately 25 minutes before it ran the sync. Now, what all I can do on this connector? So first of all, whenever you have your connector, you will always look for your connector in the connectors page, and then you will need to navigate to that connector. Now there are multiple actions that you can take on the connector. These are the actions. So first you need to select the connector. For example, in a production environment, you may have multiple connectors. Probably there are multiple subscriptions, multiple Azure subscriptions or multiple tenants, and you want them all to you want them to be managed using Qualys, or you want Qualys to manage the inventory. So you will have multiple entries here. So whenever you want to perform certain configuration changes with a specific connector, please select that connector. After you select that connector, then you will need to click on action. Here you see all the actions with respect to that connector. For example, first is view details. It will show you the details of the connector with respect to what is the connector name, the application that has been enabled for the connector. For example, for this connector, I have enabled CSPM, asset view, which is asset inventory. Then you can see the authentication type of this connector. So account that this connector is using is Global Azure. This is the application ID. Uh, This is the subscription ID. This is the directory ID. And this is the connector ID. So all these IDs are mentioned. The subscription name is also mentioned. Now you never provided the subscription name. This subscription name was automatically discovered by connector because you provided the subscription ID. So it was able to resolve the subscription name. It's like DNS resolution. You provided a code and it knew the subscription name against that code. And then the polling frequency, which is 4 hours. So you decided 4 hours of polling frequency, which means every 4 hours, it basically scans your Azure environment and it updates the inventory and it does its job, whatever job you have assigned it to. These are the tags that you have provided. So that's the information. Then tags and activation. For this connector, I have enabled two modules, which is policy compliance and vulnerability management. And zero touch cloud perimeter scan is also enabled. Last job summary. Any job that you have run using this connector, you will be seeing it here. And then the perimeter scan. These are the perimeter scan recommendations. So yesterday when we activated this connector, we have also enabled some configuration, which is I have enabled the connector to start scanning the cloud environment or to start running the perimeter scan from today onwards every day as per IST time zone at 9 p.m. in the evening. So you see all the information here. Now, if you want to edit any of this connector configuration, you can also click on edit. Then you will be able to edit any of the configuration. For example, you don't want to enable cloud security posture management, you can uncheck the box. Right, by default, asset inventory will remain checked because that's the default capability of the connector. Authentication details, if your authentication secret has changed, you can change the secret here. If application ID has changed, you can change here. Polling frequency, you can change. You can make it 8 hours or 2 hours, whatever you want. So you can make all the changes. If you want to add more tags, you can add more tags also by clicking on select asset tag. If you want to disable cloud perimeter scan, you can also disable the scan. And if this setting only makes sense, I'm saying if you have not checked this box, which is enabled zero touch cloud perimeter scan, then scan settings would not make any difference. So since we have enabled cloud perimeter scan, the scan settings will come into effect. So we can enable custom scan settings, which I have enabled here, and then assign tags. If you want to assign any tags, you can also assign it. So that's how you can edit the connector configuration. Other than this, what you can do, you can run this connector. Run connector basically means you can run. So for example, the connector, the last sync was done on 157 and the polling frequency is every 4 hours. So when exactly it is going to run the next sync? Prashant? as per
After
the
4 hours.
after 4 hours, right?
4 hours.
However,
Yes.
I want to run it manually. I want to kind of trigger the connector to run polling once again. Probably I have got some additional assets in the cloud and I want them to scan. So in that case, what I can do, I can click on, I can select this connector, and on the actions, I can say run connector.
Run
So when I say run connector, what it will do, it will start the scanning process once again. And you can see last synced on 227, which is the time right now. And it says queued, which basically means it has started the sync. Now, depending on how many assets are there on the other side, on the Azure side, the process will take probably from a couple of minutes to an hour. So that's how we can, make the connector resynchronize, or we can synchronize the connector once again. Next, if you want to delete the connector, you can delete it from here. If you want to disable the connector, you can disable it also. Disabling basically means that the connector will not work. So if I click on disable, right now I should not disable because it is basically doing the synchronization. I don't want to corrupt the configuration. So you can also disable and delete. Disabling basically means connector will remain there. However, it will not perform any discovery and scan jobs. So if I disable the connector and if I keep it disabled at 9 o'clock in the evening today, it will not perform any scan. And from this moment onward, till the time it will remain disabled, it will not run any discovery scan also, or polling frequency, which is 4 hours. It will not work every 4 hours. That's disabled. Then it says view assets and AI. This is a new capability that they have launched. So here you can see the assets, all the assets that connector has identified over here in the asset inventory. AI stands for asset inventory. So in the asset inventory global asset view, it basically shows you the asset inventory. Let's go back. What else is remaining here? Show inventory in total cloud. So here it shows the inventory and asset inventory. And you know that total cloud is another feature of another module of Qualys. If you want to show the same inventory of connector in total cloud, you can click here and it will take you to the total cloud module where it will show you the inventory that this connector has identified. So here it shows you the inventory in the total cloud that it has got one resource group. It has got 5 virtual machines. It has got 5 disks. It has got 5 public IPs. All that inventory it will show you from here. And then the last thing with respect to the connector is attach. Attach basically means what basically happens. You can also create. So if there are multiple connectors for a specific cloud, you can create an organization of connector also, which means there will be so there are multiple tenants, multiple subscriptions, and each subscription or tenant has a respective connector. Then you can add all the connectors here. It says attach subscription connector to a tenant connector. So if you have a tenant connector, then you can, since this connector type right now, that the connector type that we are using is subscription connector. Now subscriptions are part of a tenant. So if you have a tenant connector, you can attach this connector to the tenant connector also. That's it. So these are all the configurable items or configurable options with respect to cloud connectors. That is all about cloud connectors. So in a nutshell, if I want to summarize, cloud connectors provides visibility into our cloud environment assets. Cloud connectors can also perform cloud perimeter scan on cloud assets which are publicly exposed. That's all about cloud connectors. I'm open to questions if you have any here with respect to cloud connectors before we move on to the next topic.
Raghu, do we need these VMs running for the connector to be able to get or fetch the details?
No. Even if the VMs are stopped, connector will still be able to find the VMs because connector is working at the subscription level. So the only thing that will not work is the scan. If you run a scan from the connector and if the VM is not up and running, then connector will not be able to run the perimeter scan. It will not be able to send ICMP ping request to identify on which port VM is exposed, which port VM is, which port VM is not working for.
Okay.
Right?
In my case, the connector is showing 0 sets. Don't know why. Status is completed with errors, it shows.
Okay, we'll come to this. So for example, in
Okay.
my case, it shows 4 assets and I exactly have 4 virtual machines. Now, why it is showing you more virtual machines here? Because what Farhan is doing as we speak, Farhan is deleting some virtual machines and creating new virtual machines. So what will happen? Any virtual machine which is deleted, it will still continue to show for some time, and within 24 hours, the machine will get removed completely. So, for example, these machines, they are not existing. That's the reason tags are missing from these 2 machines. They've been deleted. Okay. So this is about connector. Now, one last thing that you need to know is how do we run a perimeter scan? So we have seen edit connector details, disable Microsoft Azure connector, delete connector, view assets and resources, synchronizing data, and run perimeter scan. Let's run a perimeter scan from the connector. Now, obviously, if you want to run a perimeter scan from the connector, the first thing that you need to do is to turn on your virtual machines. So all of you, please go ahead and turn on your virtual machines. All right, guys, let's move on. So now what are we going to do? We are going to run a perimeter scan. Now there are 2 ways to run a perimeter scan. Hope my screen is visible to everyone. Okay. So when it comes to running a perimeter scan, as I said, when it comes to the perimeter scan, what are you going to identify with the perimeter scan? You are going to, with the perimeter scan, whatever discovered assets. So understand, perimeter scan would only be applicable to the assets that has been discovered by the connector. So if the connector ran the synchronization, let's say a minute ago, and then connector was able to discover 20 assets. When you run the perimeter scan now, it will only be able to scan those 20 assets. So any asset that was added after the connector ran the synchronization will not be included in the perimeter scan. That's the first thing. Second, the perimeter scan will only scan from the perimeter, from outside in. So the scan would primarily be focused on the networking. It will identify network related vulnerabilities, which is any open port on the virtual machine. That's what it is going to do. It will not be able to log in to the virtual machine, authenticate, take RDP or SSH into the virtual machine, and be able to identify any vulnerability related to operating system or related to the applications which are installed. So perimeter scan has a limited capability. It scans from outside in. So it will show you outside in vulnerability, right? Now, other than this, you can run perimeter scan once every 4 hours. You cannot run perimeter scan uh, whenever you wish. There has to be a difference of a minimum of 4 hours between two perimeter scan. You can schedule perimeter scan. That's absolutely fine. While you create the connector, for example, we have scheduled a perimeter scan to run at 9 o'clock in the evening every day. while we created the connector, and that will start from today onwards because the start date was 8th of January. So you can run an on-demand scan, you can schedule the scan. However, the difference between two scan, the time duration difference between two scans should be a minimum of 4 hours. That's the that's the limitation from Qualys perspective, because perimeter scan uses external scanners, and external scanners are common for all the customers in a specific data center. So Qualys would want to make sure that all the customers get external scanners availability. One customer should not overutilize it. That's the reason there is a limit. That's the reason I put that into red font so that it catches your attention. So what are we going to do? We are now going to run a perimeter scan, and we will see what all information the perimeter scan can bring on the table. So there are two ways to run the perimeter scan. The first way to run the perimeter scan is you navigate to your connector. So we navigate to the connectors and we reach to our connector. And when we select the connector, we have an option that says run perimeter scan. When we click on it, it will start to run the perimeter scan. It will not ask any information. It will just go with the default options, right? So I would not recommend running the perimeter scan from here. We should run perimeter scan from a different location, because that is where you get to select some configurations. You get to select some options. So we are not going to run perimeter scan from here. However, you can also run perimeter scan from here by using default configurations. Configurations which are not visible to you. They are default. So let's not run perimeter scan from here. Is everyone with me on this? Great. Let's move on. Now let's see what is the other way, other options where we can run the perimeter scan from. So what we will do, we all will navigate to VMDR module, Qualys VMDR module. Mayank and Ravi, do you have any questions? I see your hands raised.
No, Raghuveer.
Okay,
No, Raghu.
please put your hands down. Okay, so let's navigate to the VMDR module. Now, while you're working with Qualys, always follow the best practices. The best practice says that whenever you need to run a scan, always use scan module to run the scan. So when you navigate to the VMDR, on VMDR module, you see multiple tabs. At the middle of that module, middle of the screen, you will see a tab with the name scans. Always perform a scan from here. So click on scan. After you click on scan, you see some additional tabs here. Click on the scan tabs. I'm saying after you click on scan, click on the scan tab, the blue ribbon once again scans. And this is where you see all the scans that those were run in the past, and all the scans that are currently running. All that information you will find here. So over here, you see this button that says new. You will need to click on new. It opens a drop down and you see a lot of scan options. All these scan options are available here. Now, since your intention is to run a cloud perimeter scan, select the third option, which is cloud perimeter scan. When I click on cloud perimeter scan, it opens another pop-up, another window that has a lot of configuration that I can provide while running a perimeter scan. Okay, so the first information is cloud. I need to tell which or for which cloud I want to run the perimeter scan. So right now I only have connector for Azure. So I'll select Azure Cloud. The moment I'll select this cloud, it shows you for which service it will run the perimeter scan. So you can see the perimeter scan is only applicable against a virtual machine, because you only have virtual machine right now. So it shows you the service against which perimeter scan will run. That's the first information. Second is scan details. So here you can provide the configuration, which is title of the scan. I will say by default, it picks up today's date and then some numerals as a record. So it says the title is cloud perimeter scan. This is completely customizable. You can change the name also. And then the option profile. Option profile basically means what all vulnerabilities you want to identify, or against which vulnerability database you want to run this perimeter scan. So you can see all the vulnerabilities database. If you were running a perimeter scan from connector, it would have it would have used this profile, which is Qualys recommended option profile default. However, since you're running perimeter scan from here, now you have an option to pick and choose from. So you can pick and choose that whether you want to run a perimeter scan from Sense top 20 options, Qualys top 20 options, or PCI DSS, whatever you want to select, you can select. So I'll just go with the default here, which is Qualys recommended scan. Then you can select the priority also. Now, what is this priority? Priority basically means there is a probability that multiple scans are running at the same time. Probably you have some cloud agent scan running, you have some virtual appliance scan running, because Qualys portal will remain common for the entire organization. Now, entire organization may have thousands of assets and they are added through virtual appliance, physical appliance, agents, cloud connectors. So there are multiple methods through which they are discovered. And there could be a probability that while you are running the scan, there is another scan which is also up and running. So this priority will basically help Qualys to decide whether your scan should be prioritized over an existing running scan or whether your scan can wait. So that's the priority concept. If you say emergency, if you select one emergency, it basically means that your scan will get highest priority and all other scans will pause for a while and your scan will be given highest priority, which means all resources that you have available from Qualys will be allocated for this scan. That's emergency scan. Similarly, you have additional scans also. Every scan that you run or configure will require a priority. So if your scan is critical, all other scans which are below critical, they will stop and your scan will be prioritized. That's the concept here. So since it doesn't have a priority, we'll just say our scan is high, number 5 we can pick up. Okay, next, scan job status. So it says scan job status, deactivate this task, which means the scan job status. If you say deactivate this task, which basically means that the scan will get deactivated. So we'll just select the processing priority and move on. Next is target host. What are we going to select? What are we going to run the scan? Against which asset we want to run the scan? Now we have selected. So here you need to select your connector. So I've select my connector, which is Qualys Azure Connector. Now there is a priority that you may have 20 connectors, right? So you will first select the connector that, okay, I want to run the scan for this connector, which means for the host that are discovered by this connector. So I've selected my connector and now this connector probably have discovered 10,000 hosts. So do you want to include all of them into the scan? Do you want to include some of them in the scan? Do you want to exclude some of them? All that information you will fill here, which is include hosts that have any of the tags below. So any of the tags. So I will select on add tags and I will click on this view, this drop down over here. It shows me all the tags. So every host that is being discovered using this connector will be tagged because you've selected that tag while provisioning the connector. So what tag did we select while provisioning the connector is Azure resource, right? So every virtual machine or every asset that is discovered using this connector has a common tag, which is Azure resource. Or it may have multiple tags also, which is Azure resource environment production, Azure resource environment non-production, depending on. So here you are basically defining that and please go ahead and include these resources in the scanning. So I've selected two tags, which is Azure and Azure resource. It says include hosts that have any of the tags below. So now any resource that has one of these two tags will be in scope of scan. Similarly, you can also exclude it. So over here it says do not include hosts that have all of these tags. Now, if you have 1,000 VMs and you want to run a perimeter scan for a specific VMs, you may want to put a separate tag for them. So basis on the tags, you can also select what all VMs you want to exclude. So this is include and exclude. Now, in your environment, if you have load balancers, you can also include those load balancers here. Since in our environment, we don't have a load balancer, we'll just leave it as it is. So that's the concept here. Then comes, so this is the target host view. Then comes scanner. Here you will select your scanner appliance. So we have three appliances here, build my list, Qualys VSA. So Qualys VSA is Qualys virtual scanner appliance. And build my list basically means that if you are a paid customer of Qualys, and say if you have a license of Qualys, then in your specific region there could be multiple uh, external scanner appliances available. So you can pick and choose a specific scanner appliance. And Qualys VSA is my virtual scanner appliance, which I have already provisioned. So in your case, you will only see two options, which is external and build my list. But in my case, I see three options because I have also built this virtual scanner appliance for the testing perspective. So I will select external. So by default, since it's a perimeter scan, it is always advisable to go with external scanner. After that, next tab is schedule and notification. Do you want to run this perimeter scan now, or you want to schedule it at a later point in time? Then you can also configure the schedule options. So I can say I want to run it now. And then do you want to notify somebody once this perimeter scan is finished? So you can also send notification after the scan is finished. So it says add your customer message here. So you can type the perimeter scan is completed successfully. If you want to add a distribution group, a DL, you can also add a DL. By default, who will get notified? I will get notified because whosoever is the user who is performing this activity, is configuring this activity, will get notified by default. But if I want additional users, I can add their DL, distribution group. So this was my second last option. Then in the end, I will have review. Review will basically show you all the configurations that you have selected right from the top till bottom. And it also shows you everything right now. It says assets identified synced from connector is 4. So it tells me right now that connector has synchronized 4 assets. So in the scope of this scan, there will be 4 assets. And this information is also coming based on the tags that I have defined, those 2 tags. Assets qualified for scan is 1. Only one asset is getting qualified for scan. Asset submitted to scan is 1. Out of 4, only one asset is getting qualified because the remaining assets do not have that tag. Because the existing assets I got deleted and new assets do not have tags. So only one gets qualified for it. And then the scanner appliance is 1. Recipient is not shown, but automatically the account manager will get the information. And in the end, I can submit the scan job. So if I had selected perimeter scan from connector view, I would not have got an opportunity to exercise all of those configurations. It would have taken default configuration in scope and it would have initiated the perimeter scan. Since I used this option, the other method, I got the capability to configure each and every option based on my requirements. In the end, I will say submit scan job. So the scan job will be submitted and you will see it here in this window. If I just refresh, I will see 2 entries now. So it is taking some time. I will see 2 entries now. This scan got finished before. So this perimeter scan will be added here. So this is how we run a perimeter scan by exercising all the options. Raghavendra, you're facing some issue. It says target no scanned assets match the selected connector detail or the tags no load balancer. See, load balancer is okay because you don't have load balancer. Tagging, you need to check whether you have specified tag yesterday or not. And Alex, we don't have Azure tag, only Azure resources. That's okay.
I created the tags yesterday, but it's not there.
It's not showing that tag. Okay, that you need to validate. You can share your screen and then I will explain you how to do that and others will see this. While I'm explaining it to Alex, please see
Yeah.
how you can verify, how you can edit that information.
Just give me a second.
So what you need to do, Alex, here, first of all, you need to go to your connector configuration. See, tagging is very important in Qualys. Okay, go to your connector, edit your connector configuration.
Okay, edit.
Yeah, and go to the tags, tag and activation. So the tag that you have added is Azure resource. This is the tag. Yep, you can click on all tags and there you will see.
Sorry, so I should add the one more or?
No. Click on all tags. All tags in the same window. No, don't remove it. Okay. Yeah, all tags.
All tags, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So here you see the tag, right?
Yeah.
Scroll it. Now expand that business unit. Now your tag is not shown here. Click on create new tag. Now put the tag name, tag value, whatever you want to do. Then tag color, tag criticality.
Yeah, I've done yesterday. It's weird. Wait.
Yeah. Tag criticality also. The asset which will have this tag, the criticality of that asset. Go back. Click on new tag once again.
Yes, sorry. Okay.
Okay, that tag is visible now. You can see Azure resource. The tag is there.
Yes, this one is here. Yes.
Yeah. Now click on add tag. Select that tag and click on add tag.
Okay.
Yeah. This is how you do it, right? So what will happen? Azure resource tag will be applicable, will be applied to all the assets that will be searched using this connector. That's the logic here. Yep. Now click on create.
Tag successfully created.
So now the tag was created. You can see, you can go back to the all tags and you will see that tag created. Go back to the tags once again.
I save here. Okay, save.
Yeah, save. Now you will need to run the connector once again. Select the connector.
Yes, edge perimeter. No, this one from
no, run the connector. Run connector, not perimeter scan.
Run connector. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what will happen? Now it will refresh, and all the assets that it will discover, those assets will be tagged. Now, first of all, is your virtual machines up and running right now?
Last time we're running.
Okay, they are running. That's okay. Go back to the connector once again.
Wow.
Yeah, refresh.
It's still
queued. Yeah. So the first thing is, if it doesn't show assets here, the asset against asset, it says 0. If it says 0 here, which means when you run the perimeter scan, nothing will get included.
Okay.
Yep. So if first it should say asset value, what 2, 3, because there are 3 assets that you have.
Yep.
Click on inventory once again. Inventory that says 17. Click on inventory. Right next to asset, you see inventory.
Okay.
When it says asset against 0, you see inventory 17.
Inventory here. Okay.
Yeah, 17. Click on 17.
17. Okay. No, I was looking for inventory button.
No. Let's see where it takes you. Now look for virtual machines.
Virtual machines free.
Free. Okay. So it is searching for three virtual machines. And so this click on that number three, you will see those three virtual machines also. If it doesn't
Uh,
select, no worries. Go to virtual machines to your left. To your left under inventory type, it says virtual machines. Can you select that number three from there?
okay,
Yeah.
this one.
Okay.
Okay.
These are your three virtual machines.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Uh, so you can see it says the status of the virtual machine as provisioning succeeded, but VM deallocated, which
Oh.
basically means that these three virtual machines were discovered. But since the polling happens every 4 hours, probably when the poll ran last night, your machines were found as deallocated. That is the reason now the number is zero. So now you're running the connector once again, and your machines are up and running. So it will quickly identify these three virtual machines as available.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a
Okay.
production environment, you will never shut down your assets. Your machines will always be up and running, right? Since this
Yes.
is a lab environment and we want to save cost, that's the reason I ask you to shut down your virtual machines when you know you're not working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So go back
Okay.
to your connector now.
Ah, back.
It says completed with error. There is an error. Click on completed with error. What error it basically brought? Hmm.
It's not clickable.
Okay, I want to check whether the connection is successful or not. Click on edit connector
Okay.
and go
Let's
to
go.
authentication details. Directly go to authentication. Scroll down
Yes.
and click on test connection.
Well, yesterday it's working. Was
Okay,
working. Yeah.
connection is working, which means the from connectivity perspective, things are fine. Click next.
Uh.
Assign. Click. Now go to the tag and activation.
Okay. Tag and activation.
After authentication, you see tag and activation. So
Yes.
tag is
It's
also there, which means things are fine here. Click on cancel and run the connector once again. You can cancel the edit. At the bottom, you see cancel.
bottom here. No.
Right? Yeah, cancel. At the bottom, you see cancel button before save button. You are in the
Uh.
edit mode, right? So there is a cancel button at the bottom.
Uh. I don't see it. Any it's white space at the bottom.
Yeah,
Sorry.
cancel. It says save and cancel.
It's cute. Okay,
No, no,
maybe I don't see it. It's just white
no,
space in
no,
the bottom. I don't see anything.
no. So do you see that select asset tag which says Azure resource? Okay, probably the screen is there is a lag in the screen. I was on a different screen. That's okay. Now, did you run the connector once again? It says queued
Y-
once again.
yes.
Okay. So basically, this process has to complete unless this connector is able to scan your resources successfully. The perimeter scan would be of no use.
Hmm.
Okay, so we will wait for some time. It will work.
Does anyone else has this issue or it's just me?
It is with
I am also
probably
getting
it
the
is
same
with
issue.
for others it is working fine. Seems
For me
Hmm.
also it is the same. I'm also getting the same issue.
okay. Just give me 1 minute here. Now let me take the screen. Let me take the control back.
Yes. Stop the
All
share.
right. On my screen, is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay. On my screen, you can see that the perimeter scan that I ran, which is on the top, this is the one because I said testing PS. This scan basically got completed, right? This was the target that this was able to scan 172, 203, 115, and 100. Let's see which target it is. Which target is this that it was able to scan? See, these are my VMs. These four VMs are mine for which the connector is working. Out of these four VMs, you can see this VM is stop deallocated. So let's keep it out of the scope. Then we are left with three VMs. And out of these three VMs, my connector was able to scan this VM only 172.203.155 and 100, which is this VM in question, which is Qualys Win2K19. Why it was able to scan this VM only? Because this VM only had that tag. The remaining two VMs, they're provisioned by Farhan, and these VMs do not have the tag, that Azure resource and Azure tag. That's the reason only this VM was scanned. That's exactly what I got to see here. And when I click on this scan report, it says vulnerability scan, cloud perimeter scan, target IP1. It says total host alive is 0, total appliance used is 1, and vulnerabilities found is 0. If I click on view summary, I can see the summary here. So in the summary scanner, this was the scanner appliance that was used. This is from Qualys, and the scan was not used target. It says this was the target. Host with any of these tags were included in the scan, which is Azure and Azure resource. So this target was scanned and it could not find any vulnerabilities against this host. This host is absolutely working fine. So that's what the perimeter scan is basically showing me. Right now, the other two assets that are not getting included, why they are not getting included? Because they do not have those tags. So I also need to go to my connector and fix that part. See, asset tag is not included here. Azure resource and these two tags. Add tags. I've added the tags now. I'll save them. And in my case, it also says zero asset. You can see why it is coming as zero asset, because of those tags were not present. And my machines, they were also shut down last night. So that's the reason it says zero here. Now I will run the connector once again. It will run and then it will be able to identify those VMs. So you can see here the virtual machines, Qualys Windows 10. This machine was deleted by Farhan. Three machines are up and running. These three machines are running. And this Qualys VSA, this machine is deallocated. So you can see here this Qualys VSA machine, this machine is deallocated. And these three machines, which is Win10 Pro, Win16, and 2019, these three machines are running here. 16, 19, and Pro, they are running. And this machine, Qualys Win10, this is deleted. So you will not find that machine here. So it's working fine. I'm saying it just, there are multiple views. So there is a synchronization issue, but it's absolutely working fine. If I go back to my connector, you can see here now it has identified four assets.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a refresh of the. In
Yep.
your case, is working very fast. This
See,
risk
Alex, I'm also using a trial account. My account and your account is almost the same. There is no difference. It's just that see, sometimes what happens when you do things, I'm saying when you have done those things in the past, you get some level of confidence, and then coincidentally they fall in place. When you are doing things for the first time, and if they don't work as expected, you lose your confidence, and then it also resonates in the work. That's what is happening. So in my case, you all notice that there was zero assets. Then I just added my connector. I added those tags over here, Azure and Azure resource. And after that, I run the scan once again, and it was able to discover those four assets. And those four assets, if I click on it, you will see those four virtual machines, the same four virtual machines, which is 16, 19, and 10. And this virtual machine is deleted right now. This doesn't exist, and this one is stopped right now. So the same information, it is working. Okay. Now, if I run the perimeter scan once again, you will see the difference. You will see in the perimeter scan, it will include all the resources. So I'll go and run the perimeter scan once again. I'll go to VMDR, scans. Look at how I'm running the perimeter scan once again. New cloud perimeter scan. I'll select Azure, then scan details. Testing again. I'll put the name of the scan as testing again. Qualys recommended option profile. Priority, I'll give it higher priority. Target host, I'll select my connector. Then I add my tags, both the tags, which is Azure and Azure resource. Both tags I have added. I will not select any load balancer part. I'll just keep it as it is. Scanner, I'll select external. Here I'll do nothing. I'll go to review, and it will review this time. Now you can see that asset identified synced from connector are 4. Asset qualified for scan is 3. Why only 3 assets are qualified for scan? Can somebody tell me? By looking at the screen, these are my 4 assets. Why the connector says that only 3 assets are qualified for scan?
Because only 3 are up and running?
Absolutely. Only 3 are up and running. So any asset which is top deallocated will be discovered. But when you run a perimeter scan, it will not be applicable for that asset because it is discovered as top deallocated. So it will not be applicable, right? And now I'll submit the scan job. So once you submit the scan job, you will see that here. I'm saying when you refresh the screen, you will find it here. It doesn't only show you the jobs which are finished. It also shows you the job which are currently up and running. If I refresh my screen, I am expecting to see that here. Somehow it doesn't show me here scans, but actually it shows here. Yeah, over here I can see here. This is the scan job which this is testing again over here. You can see this is the job which I have run. It shows the schedule basically. This job was run right now at 3:15. However, in the scans here, you see, okay, now it is showing. You can see this job, you can see this button here. It says queued. The job is queued, which means that it is yet to run. And if you click on the job, you will see the status of it also. So it is running, that job will run, and I will see the result of it. So that's the concept of perimeter scan, guys. I'm open to questions now. I don't understand why the status is still queued. And in this lab, it's changing to complete very fast. Okay,
Yes,
this is
meaning
for
it's still queued in my side. I mean, it's not
yeah,
about confidence. It's just a software. I didn't build it. Why is still
yeah.
queued?
That's all I can say. See, mine is also a trial version. It could be because of your trial is running in a different data center.
Okay,
Your
that's
trial
nice.
is in Europe, mine is in India. What is the behavior for other participants from India?
Yeah, it's a normal speed.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
So guys,
no host alive.
yeah, no host alive. It basically shows, as I said, as I told you, before you run the scan, you will need to run the connector once again when your VMs are up and running, so that it will first discover your VMs. Then you need to run the perimeter scan. Otherwise, the result will come as no host alive. because perimeter scan runs basis the connector discovery. So if the previous discovery said that the VMs were not available, they were shut down, then the perimeter scan will also say that no host alive. That's the simple concept. Okay.
I,
So
I have a
that's
question. I have only one question, which is you said this parameter scan is doing also port scanning.
it only does port scanning. That's it.
Okay. And if in your host you have kind of a firewall that is detected that it was scanned, it might auto block the Qualys, let's say source IP or something that where the scanning is coming from.
Absolutely. It may happen. That's the reason perimeter scan is just one capability that connector provides. But the actual, if you really want to explore the actual capability of Qualys, it is always through agent and virtual scanner appliance. In the
Okay.
past, in the past, connector would not provide perimeter scan capability also. Connector was only there to view the inventory, to consolidate the asset details into Qualys inventory. Then later on, they added perimeter scan capability into the connector. So now connectors can also be used to run the perimeter scan.
Okay.
Okay. Great. And now, and it is not only that the firewall inside the VM may block the connector sending the ICMP ping. It could be Microsoft Azure also. See, Microsoft Azure also has a perimeter firewall. So every request that is coming into Azure network, Azure perimeter network, it is also filtered through Azure firewall. So Azure firewall may also block Qualys external scanner from sending ICMP ping to any of its resource. That may also happen. Okay, great. Let's move on, guys. That's all about perimeter scan. You can practice it in your spare time and then come back with questions. All right. So now we have run the perimeter scan. Now perimeter scan has certain limitations. We all have seen that there are limitations of this scan. The limitations.
So Raghuveer, there are some questions in the chat. So some few of the participants are facing the same issue where it is showing as zero active host even though they are up and running.
See, if it is showing as zero active host, as I said, this could be an issue from Azure also. The Azure perimeter firewall may also block Qualys external scanner from sending any ICMP request. If Qualys scanner is getting blocked at the firewall level, at the Azure level, even though it will say that host is not alive, because the request will not reach to the host. So the scanner will say that I'm not able to reach the host. Probably the host is not alive. That is also one of the reasons.
So is there a way to do a kind of
There is
whitelisting of the scanner
no.
IPs?
You cannot do that. Azure would not allow any external, scan. It is like running a penetration testing. This is equal to run a penetration test that you want to scan for open ports from outside of Azure. Azure would not allow you to do that. That is the reason I'm saying that perimeter scan has its own limitations. However, if you are running this perimeter scan for a resource which is outside of Azure, because perimeter scan is also applicable for on-premises environment, on-premises data centers, but that is run through a virtual scanner appliance instead of external appliance, you can use a virtual scanner appliance. That is our next topic. So once we deploy a virtual scanner appliance, we will run both internal scan as well as perimeter scan. And then you will see the difference in the scan that connector is doing and in the scan that virtual scanner appliance is doing.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So limitations of perimeter scan. So perimeter scan, it is only only applicable for publicly exposed assets, cloud perimeter, or I would say CSP perimeter firewall, CSP perimeter firewall, or DDoS service may interrupt perimeter scan. And why it is doing it? Because imagine perimeter scan is being running by a hacker, and a hacker can also find a publicly exposed resource and can quickly run a network scan, port scan on that resource. So cloud service providers have a DDoS, basic DDoS service available for all the customers. And sometimes that perimeter firewall or DDoS service, that may interrupt your perimeter scan, that may block your perimeter scan. That's one thing. Second, existing security software, which is basically sometimes EDR or next gen firewall, etc. Existing security software deployed on the asset may also affect perimeter scan. So these are my limitations of perimeter scan. And perimeter scan does not include any perimeter scan can't scan any installed software application on the in-scope asset. That's the another limitation. So these are my limitations for a perimeter scan. And since there are limitations, there is always a solution. That solution is Qualys Scanner Appliance. So the solution is Qualys Scanner Appliance and Qualys Cloud Agent. We'll go step by step. First, we will look at Qualys Scanner Appliance, and then we will go to Qualys Cloud Agent. Okay. Is everyone with me on this? Let me know if you have any questions before we move on to the next topic, which is Qualys Scanner Appliance. That is all about Cloud Connector that I wanted to cover. Yes, Ravi, any question?
Yeah, so Raghuveer, just going back to the previous scan, the results got completed, but I don't see any hosts active actually.
Yeah, that is the same case for me. As
yeah.
I told, I'll show you. It is the same case for me, which means that Azure Perimeter Firewall or Azure Perimeter DDoS service is blocking external appliance to send
Okay.
any traffic to your environment. So you can see in my case also it is the same case.
Sorry, where is this gets blocked?
I'll show you. So
Yeah.
this is the scan result. This is the scan that I ran basically. If I look at the scan results, let's first show me the result. Over here, scan summary. I'll show you both the things. So you can see the summary here. Over here, it says that this is the scanner appliance that was used, which is 10. This is the IP address of the scanner appliance. And you can see this is the scanner appliance that was used. And then these were the targets. So Qualys was able to identify these three assets or these three targets, right? For these three targets, the scan ran, and the scan ran based on the Qualys recommended option profile, right? So which basically contained all of these vulnerabilities database. However, what has happened here, if you look at the result, if you look at the summary, in the summary, it basically shows the scan ran, the start date, end date, and the total asset scanned is 0. The total asset scanned is 0 because now I'll show you the result here. Still loading. Okay, over here. Scan results. So it says no data is displayed due to one of the reasons. First, there was no data found on the host, no host alive. One or more hosts are in the excluded host list. Hosts were scanned, but no open port was found. Now, in our case, the option is no host alive. Because if you see here, it says launch date, active host is 0 in my case. Total host is 3, which means it was able to identify 3 hosts, but it could not perform a scan on any of those hosts. It says active host is 0, right? It says target distribution across scanner appliance. These were the 3 IPs. These were the 3 public IPs of the virtual machines that it was trying to scan. And it says host not alive. All 3, they are not alive. So what is happening here? When this external scanner is trying to scan these public IPs, which are part of Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, the scanner is basically interrupted by the Azure security, Azure perimeter security, which is DDoS service. Because Azure DDoS service doesn't know whether it's a hacker who is trying to perform a port scanning or whether it's a legitimate service which is trying to perform the legitimate action which is triggered by the customer. So how will Azure know? What will happen in a production environment based on the cloud data center of your Qualys account? So for example, right now, this is a trial account. And this trial account is from, I've taken this trial in India. And this trial account is configured in Qualys Singapore data center. So wheresoever your trial account, wheresoever your production account is configured, you will connect with Qualys and seek the public IPs of that data center. Qualys will share a public IPs of those data centers, which includes your external scanner appliance public IPs also. You will need to share this IP with Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft Azure will whitelist those IPs for your specific account. And then whenever there is any traffic that gets triggered from those IPs to your account, Microsoft Azure DDoS service will not block it. That's what you need to do. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Thanks, Raghuveer. Good.
Okay. Ashish says that the connector is still in queue. If it isn't still in queue, you just need to refresh the page or refresh the window. Probably the connector has refreshed, but your browser has not refreshed yet.
That is also done. In fact, I logged out and logged in back. Still, it is the same.
But it says connection successful, right?
It says connection successful. Correct.
Yeah. So you just need to refresh. There is no other option. See, if it continues to say queued, the only thing that you need to check is whether your test connection is working or not. So in the screenshot, I can see test connection is perfectly working fine. So which means there is nothing that you can do now, right? So all you can do is to connect with Qualys technical support and ask them that why is this happening? Okay, which we don't want to do in the trial account, because in trial you don't get technical support, right? So in a production environment, you will not face this issue. If this issue comes in the production environment, then we usually go to technical support, and they basically, remove the cache from the connector in the backend, which you don't have access to. If you don't want to reach technical support and want to fix it by yourself, there are 2 options. Either you continue wait for that appliance, for that connector to come back again, or you delete that connector and create another connector. Those are the 2 things that you can do, right?
Right. But this will not be blocked by Azure security, at least, right?
It has nothing to do with Azure right now. If your connector says queued, it means that it is the issue with Qualys, not with Azure.
Okay, I will delete and create a new one. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So if it says host not alive, then these are one of the reasons. I know the reason already, because since this is a trial account and my Azure account has not been configured to trust this IP, which is the connector IP, which is the external scanner IP. So all I need to do is basically raise a service request to my to Azure, citing my account details and citing this public IP from external scanner, so that Microsoft Azure will whitelist the scanner, and in future it will not be blocked for performing any scan on my account. That's it.